expensive tree. So they were able to get small things like this and create what they call Sansui-Kai. Now, some people think that Sansui-Kai always has to have rocks. They don't have to have rocks, but they can have rocks. So it's really a landscape created by the individual that wants to try that, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. The only thing it might cost a little bit is the pot. And a lot of the Sansui-Kai, if you look through this book, and you're welcome to do that, a lot of the Sansui-Kai are built on slabs of stone. No pot, just slabs of stone. And to hold the trees on, thank you, hold wires to that rock, and the trees are tied down underneath the soil. Of course, you don't see the wire. And the way they do that is kind of interesting. They use, well, what we use is epoxy now, and they actually use clay, and it holds the rocks pretty good. I mean, the wire's pretty good, and then they go ahead and put the trees on there. And the difference between bonsai and Sansui-Kai, to speak of Sansui-Kai at all, is that the trees are small and bonsai are a lot larger. And they're not quite as shaped as like we do with bonsai. They don't follow the rules that we do for bonsai. But if you have a chance to ever find this book, and that's what it looks like. This is kind of beat up now. But this book came out in the late 50s, early 60s. And it was printed, let me see if I can find the date it was printed. 63, but we didn't get it into the United States until the early 60s. And all of a sudden it just hit the bonsai community and people were buying it like crazy.
What's the title?
I'm sorry?
What's the title?
Bonsai Sansui-Kai by Kaui. And that's his father. And the interesting thing about the book, and we didn't know this for years, is that we knew that they printed 500 of these. They printed 500. We didn't know it, and it's right there if we just paid attention. They printed 500 for the Western Hemisphere and 500 for the Eastern Hemisphere. So they printed 1,000 books, and we thought it was only 500. This one is numbered 204.
Wow.
And you're welcome to thumb through it during the break if you want to. If you want to deal with Sansui-Kai, it's sort of fun because you don't have to spend a lot of money on plants, obviously. But they're not rules. They're just suggestions that might help you work out what you want. You remember the Yosei way, the fruit plantings, or the forest we call them, Yosei way, they're much taller than Sansui-Kai. The plants are. And the Sansui-Kai is more of a miniature landscape, more than anything else. Could be a piece of a woodland area. It can be like a landscape you might find in somebody's yard if you want to do it that way. There's a lot of ways to do Sansui-Kai. That's why it's sort of fun to do, and it's quick. I'll be out of here in 5 minutes. No?
Can we pass that book around while you're working, or is that too distracting?
Anyway, I thought we were going to work with
Should we pass the book around?
I'm sorry?
Should we pass the book around?
If be careful with it. If you can find this book for under $100, buy it. And it cost us brand new $40. That was in 53 or 4. I just sold one for the Eastern Hemisphere for $150. And I didn't know why I needed 2 books, even though it's of the Eastern Hemisphere. actually better shape than that one is. Because that's been used for show and for classes. Are familiar with the Kimura? Not the Kimura. Yoshimura. Bonsai book came out in the 50s. And that was the one we used as the Bible. In fact, Santa Anita Bonsai Society's logo tree came out in that book. And that's the one we used to use for class. Every student had to buy one. That was part of their fee for joining the class. So Con was fine, happy with that. He sold a lot of books. Now we're not making little trees, but maybe we're getting close. They don't resemble a full-grown tree. But if we place them together properly, or at least we think properly, it's like a choir. You know, if you're not a soloist, you join a choir and you do a pretty good job as a choir. That's what this is. It's just going to work together. And where'd my bucket go? Here it is. This will have a few rocks in it, and maybe a lakefront, an ocean front, or maybe along a river. So you can just play with it and decide. You don't have to draw any pictures. Just kind of work together in your mind with what the plants present.
Jim, did you grow those from cuttings?
I'm sorry?
Did you grow those from cuttings?
Yeah, these are cutting. By the way, these olives are African olives. They're known for their good oil, and the fruit is very small. But the original ones came from Kaui. Kaui doesn't have native olives. They just don't have native olives. But that's where a lot of the big fat ones are coming from now because. Are you familiar with the history of Kauai olives? Well, when the Leafy came through there in the 90s, it destroyed all the vegetation on the side of a volcano where the road to the Grand Canyon of the Pacific went up. You familiar with that at all? There's only one road that goes up there. And you get lookout over the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. It's a very, not sandy soil, it's volcanic soil going up there. And it knocked all the vegetation out. So there was nothing to hold the soil there. And so they planted a whole slew of the African olives in that area, and they just take over. And so they can, the kids, the members of the club, Kaui Bonsai Society, go over there, and the trees are tall. They're taller than the ceiling. But the trunks down at the base where they go into that ash or cinders are nice and chubby, and so you dig around until you find out where the roots are going. It looks pretty good, you just cut it over. No branches left. If you decide to do that, you better get a permit from agriculture. And you take them you wash every bit of soil off of them, take them to the airport, to the agriculture people, and they'll seal up your bucket, if you have them in buckets, which is what I did. I had a 6-gallon bucket that held swimming pool acid pellets. It said oxidizer on the outside. We were waiting for the plane to come, and these two fellas came out of from the outside, and they had white overalls on, and they said, is there a Jim Barrett in here? And I went over, and he said, what's in that bucket over there? Because they had already loaded on the plane. And the reason they were worried, because it said oxidizer on the outside. And I said, there's trees in there. And it had an agriculture tape on it. They could see that. Anyway, that was sort of fun. I took 7 of them home. I dug more than that. I dug probably 10. But I could only get 7 in that bucket. And the other 3 are still over there, I hope. Boy, I thought I brought something to dump this in.
I'll get you something, Jim. The name of the park is Waimea National Park.
I'm sorry?
Waimea National Park. That is the bonsai, the Grand
That's the
Canyon
one
of
on
the Pacific.
Kauai?
Yeah.
Okay.
Waimea Canyon State Park. So how old would you say those cuttings were?
These?
Yeah.
About 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
And is
It took them a little while to develop roots, but they're pretty easy to get roots on them.
is that the original soil you planted them in as
I'm sorry?
cuttings? Is that the original soil that you planted them in as cuttings?
No, I plant them in a different soil I use just for cutting.
Okay. Which is what?
If I tell you, I have to kill you. No, it's nothing but perlite and some peat moss.
I didn't hear that. Oh, now it's everybody knows it. Everybody knows your secret,
It's
Jim.
being live streamed.
Oh God. That burden.
One nice thing about olives, within reason, you can take a lot of roots off and still keep them. They'll continue to grow really well. It isn't that they're tough to kill because you can kill them. All you have to do is not water them anymore. But this particular variety is called Olea africanus. Oh boy, I really like that name. Anyway, it's known for its small leaf. And the other thing, when they're in the wild or in an orchard, they produce a very nice small olive. It's probably about as big as a pea, a little bigger than a pea. Not like a big olive you're thinking of as an olive. I never know how many trees I can get in here because I don't want to just jam them in because they're there. This is called lace rock. It's hard to find anymore, and it comes out of Chico in the mountains west of Chico. There's 2 or 3 places up there where you can find it. There's also a mountain in the Santa Barbara Mountains that has some. It's up on a private ranch. You have to go through barbed wire to get there. How many people know the rule for group planting? Where do you put the small ones? Towards the back of the group planting, because it adds depth. If you put the small ones in front and the tall ones in the back, you think you're looking at the back of a tree, of the root planting.
Does the rule apply to Sansui-Kai as well as regular?
I'm sorry?
Does the rule apply to Sansui-Kai as well as
Some,
odd numbers?
the nice thing about Sansui-Kai is you can break the rules. You can really break the rules if you want to. In fact, if you look at that book, you'll see that there's a lot of rule breaking going on in there. And as I said before, it's a hobby or a style of so-called bonsai that many people can have fun with and not get too serious about keeping things in a bonsai size. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a Sansui-Kai grow bigger than it should, or that you want it to, because later on you can tear it apart and some of those can be decent trees for individual pots, individual trees. And so they're never lost if that's the case. You don't keep them this small because they want to grow. It's like anything else.
What is that soil that they're in right now?
Sorry?
What's the soil they're in right now?
What's the soil?
Yeah. Is it
Dirt.
just dirt?
No, there's planter mix and there's a little bit of perlite in there and some DG.
Yeah.
There's DG in there. Main thing with any group, any mix, I don't care where you live, you have to depend on what you can find and buy to use. But the criteria is it needs to drain. If it stands on top of the soil, you better change the soil. Or if it takes a long time to percolate down through the soil, then you might think about trying something a little different.
Wow, what a great raffle. Look at all the raffle trees.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was saying that too loud. I was just merely saying that we have so many raffle things. It'd be a great night for raffle tickets. Sorry, Jim. I didn't know I was talking to you. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I got a question, Jim. Have you ever broken the bonsai rules?
Ever broken?
The bonsai rules? You were
Yeah,
saying
he wrote it.
the
Oh,
rules.
yes.
You
Oh,
broke.
yes.
Does Helen know?
A lot of rules for bonsai, they're simply guidelines. I don't like to use the word rule because that means you go to jail if you break a rule. And you don't want to do that. So there are things that if you know the guidelines, you can pretty well succeed with bonsai, either that or Sansui-Kai, either one doesn't make a difference. Any plant to stay healthy has certain criteria that it needs. Moisture, maybe fertilizer, and light. And if any of those things are missing, the tree won't really respond well to what we'd like to do with it. The other thing that I like to bring out with group plantings, whether they're forest bonsai or whether they're group plantings like this, is that you don't want to line the trees up one right behind the other. Especially if you're doing 3 trees in a row. Looks like telephone pole. And so you try to make it look, in our mind, as natural as you can. I mentioned that the big trees usually are in the middle to the front, and the small trees are to the back for looking a little like they're distant, even though there might be a little, in reality, it might impress everyone with the idea that it's a large tree but way away. And that's what we're looking for. I had to break a big lace rock to get these pieces in here.
Lace rock.
It's irregular, and you can flake it off and get some nice, fairly thin slabs of it. This isn't lace rock. I don't know what that is. Interesting. Maybe it's a good Sansui-Kai. We're always looking at group plantings, especially forests, using the rules of not even numbers like 4, 6, 8, 10. Once you get beyond 10, it doesn't make any difference. Someone picks on you and start counting the trees, and you say, "Oh, you've got 14 trees in there." Well, how does it look? So what? As long as it looks nice. So even numbers are kind of a rule that we stick with when we get into numbers like 5, 7, 9, maybe 11. But if you get a 10 grouping and it looks well, so what?
Jim, are you at a point where it might be a good time for us to take a break?
I'm sorry?
Are you at a good point where it's time to take a break?
Yeah, we can take a
I can
break.
sell my raffle tickets in case anybody's interested in raffle tickets, but this way you guys can come up, get something to eat, watch, get a little close up view and buy raffle tickets.
SMS from 7535.
Siri. We're never allowed to. Okay, and 20?
I think it's Mel.
Red. Purple or red? Good.
Oh, we have a long ways to go yet.
Wow, look at all those trees in the raffle. Oh, and I'm sorry, everybody,
It's funny how many people pop up.
Where this tree is going to be.
Oh, so Jim's tree will be in the auction later this year. It won't be in the raffle tonight. But in the raffle tonight, we have a very large pot in the back, which will be in the special.
What I do with my brush?
I'm just sneak in front of you guys for a second.
You want some coffee or water or something?
I'd like to have some water. I think I have some water. Here's some water here.
Okay.
Did you leave a trowel?
But that was
Like
your
an
trowel.
ordinary garden trowel?
It's possible.
I've got it at home. I don't know who belongs to it.
See you next time. You got my name on it?
I didn't know who. Well, I didn't see it. I didn't know who belonged to it.
Playboy.
How about I give you
Oh yeah. Your soil. Don't get me started on soil.
Here's the raffle table. And here's Ellen. I'm standing in for Mel because his dad passed away.
What do you want?
Dad passed away. He's in the Philippines.
Hey.
Yeah, you take cash?
Yeah.
Here's the special pot for tonight.
There you go, sir. Good luck.
And here's Emma.
Remembering it.
I know Sunday we're having an open house. I'm working Sunday. The King of the playoffs, so I'm working.
I'm not sure of his name, the guy you have in your, the guy in the room.
He hasn't joined. He was going to join tonight. He wanted to use a credit card, and I'm not ready for that yet. His name is, damn it. Excuse my name. I know his name. I just can't. I'm live. I'm live. I got to be careful what I say. I'm not sure.
What's in these bags?
How's yours doing? What I give you?
It's soil with a lot of humus in it. Because if you look at the microscope, yeah, there's ways to